help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story. The courtroom was dead silent, except for the sound of my ex-wife's laughter echoing off the wooden panels. It wasn't a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle. No, this was the kind of laugh that said, "Look at this pathetic fool." Her new husband, Brad, because of course his name was Brad, joined in with this smug grin plastered across his perfectly tanned face. Even a few people in the gallery were smirking, probably thinking I was about to make a complete idiot of myself. "Your Honor," my ex-wife's lawyer said, barely containing his own amusement, "I apologize for the disruption, but my client finds it rather amusing that the defendant has chosen to represent himself in such a serious matter." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on her nose, looked at me over those glasses. "Mr. Morrison, are you certain you want to proceed without legal counsel?" I stood up slowly, adjusting the second-hand suit I'd bought from a thrift store. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That was good. I'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in my head during those long nights in my studio apartment, surviving on instant ramen and black coffee. "Yes, Your Honor, I'm certain." What happened next would change everything. But let me back up a bit, because you need to understand how I got here in the first place. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank you for being here. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe and ring that bell. And for our friends in the US and the Philippines, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your voice truly matters to us, and it helps us grow and connect on a deeper level. My name is David Morrison. I'm 38 years old, though I look about 45 thanks to the stress of the past 2 years. I used to be an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Cleveland, Ohio. Not glamorous, I know, but it paid the bills, and I was good at it. Really good at it, actually. Numbers have always made sense to me in a way that people never quite have. I met Jennifer at a company mixer 7 years ago. She worked in marketing at a rival firm, and she was beautiful in that effortless way some women are. Long auburn hair, green eyes, and a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I fell hard and fast, like an idiot jumping off a cliff without checking if there was water below. We got married after a year of dating. It was a small ceremony, nothing fancy, because I wanted to save money for a house. Jennifer said she understood. She said she loved me for who I was, not what I had. That should have been my first clue, honestly. When someone goes out of their way to tell you they don't care about money, they usually care a lot about money. For 5 years, things were fine. Not perfect, but what marriage is. I worked long hours during tax season. She complained I wasn't around enough. I tried to be more present. She complained I wasn't ambitious enough. The goalpost kept moving, but I kept trying to kick the ball through it. Then I got laid off. The firm was downsizing, and despite being one of their best accountants, I was also one of their more expensive ones. They kept the younger, cheaper employees and gave me a severance package that barely covered 2 months of expenses. Jennifer said she understood. She said we'd get through it together. That lasted about 3 weeks. I started noticing things. She was on her phone constantly, smiling at the screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She started going to the gym more, buying new clothes, wearing perfume on random Tuesday afternoons. When I asked her about it, she said I was being paranoid and controlling. She said the stress of me being unemployed was making me imagine things. Gaslighting is a hell of a drug. I found out about Brad when I came home early from a job interview, which I bombed, by the way, and found his BMW in our driveway. I didn't go inside immediately. I sat in my 10-year-old Honda Civic and just stared at that car. It was one of those new electric ones, probably cost more than I made in a year back when I was employed. The license plate read Brad CEO, because subtle wasn't really Brad's thing. When I finally went inside, I didn't find them in bed together or anything dramatic like that. They were in the kitchen, drinking my expensive whiskey, the bottle I'd been saving for when I got a new job, and laughing about something on his phone. Jennifer saw me first, and for just a second I saw guilt flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold look I'd been seeing more and more lately. "David," she said, like she was addressing a child who'd walked in on an adult conversation, "this is Brad. He's a friend from my networking group." Brad stood up and extended his hand. The audacity of this guy. "Nice to meet you, man. Jennifer has told me a lot about you." I didn't shake his hand. I just stood there, still holding my briefcase, still wearing the suit I'd worn to bomb that interview, and I realized something. I was already dead to her. This marriage had been over for a while. I just hadn't gotten the memo. "I think you should leave," I said to Brad. He looked at Jennifer, not me, like she was the one who got to decide whether he stayed in my house. She nodded, and he left, but not before giving her a little smile that made my stomach turn. The divorce papers came 2 weeks later. Jennifer wanted the house, the car, half of my retirement fund, which wasn't much since I'd been unemployed, and alimony. Her lawyer argued that she'd become accustomed to a certain lifestyle during our marriage, and it was my responsibility to maintain that lifestyle even after we split. Never mind that I didn't have a job, never mind that she had a job making decent money, never mind that she was already shacking up with a guy who drove a BMW with a vanity plate. I tried to get a lawyer, but the good ones wanted retainers I couldn't afford. The cheap ones were, well, cheap for a reason. After the third consultation, where a lawyer basically told me I was screwed and there was nothing I could do about it, I made a decision. I'd represent myself. How hard could it be? Turns out, pretty damn hard. But I'm good with numbers, and law is just another system of rules and logic. At least, that's what I told myself while spending every waking hour in the public library reading case law and legal precedents until my eyes burned. I moved into a studio apartment in a sketchy part of town. It was all I could afford. The place smelled like old cigarettes and disappointment, but it was mine. I got a job doing temp work, filing and basic bookkeeping for companies that needed someone during their busy season. It barely paid enough to cover rent and food, but it gave me something more important than money. It gave me access to documents, to information, to the kind of paper trails that companies leave when they're not being careful. And that's when I found it. The thing that would change everything. I was doing temp work for a commercial real estate company, basically organizing their disaster of a filing system, when I stumbled across something interesting. A series of property transactions, all involving the same LLC. The names on the documents meant nothing to me at first, but I had time and nothing else to do, so I kept digging. The LLC was registered to a company called Summit Holdings. Summit Holdings was owned by another company, which was owned by another company. Classic corporate shell game. But I'm an accountant, was an accountant, and I know how to follow money through a maze. It took me 3 weeks of working after hours, but I finally traced it back to the real owner. Brad. My wife's new boyfriend, Brad. The CEO with the vanity plate and the smug grin. But it got better. These properties, they were being used for some creative accounting. Not quite illegal, but definitely in that gray area where the IRS gets really interested if they happen to take a closer look. Income was being shifted around. Depreciation was being claimed on properties that were actually appreciating, and rent was being reported at rates that didn't match the actual leases. I made copies of everything, discreetly. Then I kept digging. Brad wasn't just Jennifer's new boyfriend. He was also her employer. She'd left her old marketing job 6 months before our divorce, something she'd conveniently never mentioned, to work for one of Brad's companies. And her salary? Triple what she'd been making before. But here's the thing. I couldn't find any evidence that she actually did any work. No projects with her name on them, no emails in the company system, no meetings on the calendar. She was a ghost employee. Brad was paying her to do nothing, probably as a way to funnel money to her before the divorce was finalized. It meant her claims about needing alimony were based on a salary she wasn't really earning, and it meant Brad was committing fraud to help her take me to the cleaners. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. And rage. Mostly rage, if I'm being honest. The divorce hearing was set for a Tuesday morning in late September. Jennifer showed up looking like she was going to brunch at a country club, all designer dress and expensive jewelry. Jewelry I'd never seen before and definitely couldn't have afforded. Brad came with her for moral support, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. I showed up in my thrift store special, carrying a briefcase I'd bought at Goodwill. Inside that briefcase was a carefully organized folder of documents, cross-referenced and tabbed.
I'd practiced my opening statement so many times I could recite it in my sleep, but I'd also prepared for the possibility that I'd freeze up, so I had note cards. Lots of note cards. Jennifer's lawyer went first. He laid out all the reasons why she deserved the house, the car, the money. He painted me as a deadbeat who couldn't hold down a job, who'd failed to provide for his wife, who was now trying to weasel out of his responsibilities. He made me sound like the villain in our marriage, like she was the victim who'd suffered through years of my inadequacy. When he was done, Jennifer actually dabbed at her eyes with a tissue like she was crying. She wasn't. I'd lived with this woman for 5 years. I knew what her actual crying looked like. This was performance art. Then it was my turn. The judge asked if I wanted to make an opening statement. I stood up, and that's when Jennifer laughed. That's when Brad smirked. That's when I looked around the courtroom and saw people barely hiding their amusement at the poor, stupid man who thought he could represent himself. "Your Honor," I said, and my voice came out steady, stronger than I expected. "I'm going to keep this brief because I think the evidence will speak for itself. My ex-wife's attorney has painted a picture of a struggling woman who needs financial support from her deadbeat ex-husband. But I'm going to show you a different picture, a picture of fraud, of perjury, and of a conspiracy to commit what amounts to theft through the legal system." The laughter stopped. Jennifer's face went pale. Brad's smirk faltered. I opened my briefcase. "I'd like to submit Exhibit A, Your Honor. These are the employment records from Summit Holdings, one of several companies owned by Mr. Brad Cunningham, who is sitting in this courtroom today. You'll notice that my ex-wife, Jennifer Morrison, is listed as a senior marketing director with an annual salary of $150,000. Her attorney has used this salary as the basis for her alimony request, arguing that she's become accustomed to a certain lifestyle." I handed copies to the judge and to Jennifer's lawyer, whose face was starting to match Jennifer's. "Now, I'd like to submit Exhibit B. These are the project records from Summit Holdings for the past 18 months. You'll notice that Jennifer Morrison's name doesn't appear on a single project, not one. I've also included email logs, meeting minutes, and time tracking records. There's no evidence that Jennifer Morrison has actually done any actual work for Summit Holdings." The judge was reading the documents now, her expression unreadable. "Exhibit C, however," I continued, gaining confidence now, "is particularly interesting. These are text messages between Jennifer Morrison and Brad Cunningham, which I obtained through legal discovery requests. In these messages, they discuss her salary as a way to maximize the divorce settlement. Mr. Cunningham specifically states, and I quote, 'Don't worry, babe, we'll make him pay for every penny. The judge will see your salary and have to give you alimony. Then you can quit and we'll be set.'" Jennifer was standing now. "Those are private messages. He can't—" "Sit down, Mrs. Morrison," the judge said sharply. "Continue, Mr. Morrison." I was on a roll now. All those nights in my crappy apartment, all those hours in the library, all that rage I'd been bottling up, it was all coming out in a beautiful, organized, legally sound presentation.
Exhibit D is the financial records, showing that Mr. Cunningham has been paying Jennifer's rent, car payment, and credit card bills for the past 6 months, despite her supposed salary. If she's making $150,000 a year, why does she need someone else to pay her bills? The answer's simple. She's not really making that salary. It's a fraud designed to inflate her alimony claim. Jennifer's lawyer was flipping through the documents frantically. "Your Honor, I was not aware of any of this." "I'm sure you weren't," I said, and I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice now. "But ignorance doesn't change the facts. Your client lied under oath about her employment and income. She conspired with her boyfriend to commit fraud. And she tried to use this court as a weapon to steal money from me." I pulled out one more folder. But wait, there's more. Exhibit E is a report I filed with the IRS regarding Mr. Cunningham's creative accounting practices with his real estate holdings. I'm not a tax attorney, Your Honor, but even I can see that there's some questionable reporting going on. I'm sure the IRS will be very interested in taking a closer look. Brad shot to his feet. "You son of a—" "Mr. Cunningham," the judge's voice cracked like a whip. "Sit down and be silent, or I'll have you removed from my courtroom." The judge took her time reading through everything I'd submitted. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing.
Jennifer was crying for real now, mascara running down her face. Brad looked like he was going to be sick. Jennifer's lawyer looked like he was mentally calculating his malpractice insurance coverage. Finally, the judge looked up. "Mrs. Morrison, did you or did you not falsely represent your income to this court?" Jennifer opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lawyer. He just shook his head. I was going to do the work. The salary was real, I just hadn't started yet." "That's not what the text messages say. The text messages make it very clear this was a scheme to defraud me and this court." The judge removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. "I'm going to need to review all of this evidence thoroughly, but I can tell you right now, Mrs. Morrison, that things are not looking good for you. This court does not take kindly to perjury or fraud." She looked at me. "Mr. Morrison, you should have been a lawyer." "Couldn't afford law school, Your Honor, but I'm pretty good with numbers and patterns." "Clearly." She banged her gavel. "We're going to take a recess. When we return, I expect Mrs. Morrison and her attorney to be prepared to explain themselves. And Mr. Cunningham, you should probably contact your attorney. Something tells me you're going to need one." The bailiff called for everyone to rise, and the judge left. As soon as she was gone, the courtroom erupted. Jennifer's lawyer was furiously whispering to her. Brad was on his phone, probably calling his own lawyer. And I just stood there, briefcase in hand, feeling like I could breathe for the first time in 2 years. Jennifer turned to me, her face a mess of tears and smudged makeup. "David, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake." "No," I said simply. "You made a choice, multiple choices, and now you get to live with the consequences." Brad got in my face. "You think you're so smart? You just made a very powerful enemy." I looked at him, this man who'd been sleeping in what used to be my bed, drinking what used to be my whiskey, living the life that was supposed to be mine. And I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "You're not powerful, Brad. You're just rich. And judging by what the IRS is going to find, you might not even be that for much longer." When the judge returned, things moved quickly. Jennifer's attorney tried to argue that his client had been misled, that she hadn't understood what she was doing. The judge wasn't buying it. She ruled that not only would Jennifer receive no alimony, but she would be responsible for her own legal fees. The house would be sold and the proceeds split evenly. The car, which was in my name but she'd been driving, would be returned to me. But the best part? The judge referred the matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. Fraud, perjury, conspiracy. Jennifer was looking at actual jail time if the DA decided to pursue it. As we left the courtroom, Jennifer tried one more time. "David, please, I'm sorry, I really am. Can't we go back to how things were?" I looked at her. This woman I'd loved, this woman I'd trusted, this woman who'd tried to destroy me. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just nothing. How things were? You mean back when you were cheating on me? Back when you were planning all of this behind my back? Back when you looked at me and saw nothing but a wallet to drain? No, Jennifer, we can't go back to how things were, because how things were was a lie. I walked away, leaving her there in her designer dress and her expensive jewelry, crying real tears for the first time in our entire marriage. 3 months later, I got a new job, a good one, with a financial services firm that was impressed by my self-taught legal skills and my attention to detail. The pay was better than my old job, and they were even talking about sending me back to school to get my MBA. Brad's company was under investigation by the IRS. Last I heard, he was looking at some serious fines and possible criminal charges. His BMW with the vanity plate got repossessed. Karma's laugh subtle, but she gets the job done. Jennifer took a plea deal to avoid jail time. She got probation, community service, and a criminal record that would make it hard to find decent work. She moved back with her parents, in Ohio, in winter. If you've never experienced an Ohio winter living with your disappointed parents, let me tell you, it's its own kind of prison. As for me, I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I got a dog, a golden retriever I named Justice because I have a dark sense of humor and nobody can stop me. I moved into a real apartment, one that doesn't smell like cigarettes and broken dreams. I even started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. Trust takes time to rebuild. But here's the thing that really gets me. After everything that happened, after all the lies and the betrayal and the courtroom drama, Jennifer sent me a message. Just one line. I hope you're happy now.
And you know what? I am. Not because I destroyed her life, though I won't pretend that doesn't feel pretty good, but because I stood up for myself. Because I refused to be a victim. Because when everyone was laughing at me, counting me out, assuming I'd roll over and take whatever they dished out, I fought back. And I won. The moral of this story? Never underestimate a man with nothing left to lose and access to a public library. And always read the fine print, especially if you're trying to screw someone over, because sometimes that someone knows how to read it better than you do. My name is David Morrison. I'm 38 years old, and I represented myself in court against my ex-wife, her rich boyfriend, and their expensive lawyer. They laughed when they saw me, but I got the last laugh, and it was worth every second. Thanks for watching David's story of the ultimate courtroom comeback. If this revenge was satisfying to you, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories where the underdog comes out on top. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what you would have done in David's situation. Would you have represented yourself in court, or would you have handled things differently? Special shout out to our amazing viewers from the United States and the Philippines. You guys make up the biggest part of our community, and your comments are always fire. Whether you're watching from New York, Manila, Texas, Cebu, or anywhere in between, let me know you're here. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to see that standing up for yourself always pays off. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we drop the next story. See you in the next one.